Cameras on. I call to order the City Council for the City of Petoskey for the November 6, 2023. I ask that you rise with me for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Clerk Beck, would you please call roll?
DeMore, present. Shields.
Here.
Wagner.
Here.
Walker. Present. Murphy.
Present. We have quorum. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. It's the adoption of a proposed resolution that would confirm approval of the following. The October 16, 2023 regular session City Council meeting minutes, as well as the October 23rd, 2023 special work session of City Council meetings, as well as acknowledge the receipt of certain report of transactions that have occurred administratively since October 16th, 2023. I ask that the council, if you feel that there are some changes or corrections or a possible motion, I turn it to you, council. Mr. Moore.
I just have one request for addition. I'm looking at page 10. That's our numbers, page 10. The draft minutes of the October 16 regular session under the discussion of the ward and city conventions. One of the things I brought up was that the most thing I heard was the request for an earlier start time than 8 p.m. So I would only ask that that be included in the minutes because hopefully going forward, we would be able to address that.
Council, are you okay with that change?
Yes.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Shields?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes, okay. You know that it is, it's the only way we're going to be able to address it is with a city charter change, okay. Anything else on the questions or comments? Mr. Moore.
If we have questions about the proposed salt spreader plow trucks purchase, should I ask that now or should we?
Yes, that's part of the piece, and that's under C, which is the authorization to purchase Scoops Western Star of Michigan, Traverse City, 2 heavy-duty cab and chassis units, the amount of $163,000 each, and authorize the purchase installation through Burn Falls for $110,815.
So just a point of clarification, am I correct in understanding we're getting 2 of each, one in 2020, one set in 2023 budget and one set in 2024?
That is correct.
And then even though the cost exceeds the 2023 budget projections, the overall expenditures for equipment and vehicle purchases remains under budget.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Wagner?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
I got a motion from Mr. Wagner and a second from Mr. Shields. Any other discussion? I go to Clerk Beck for roll.
Wagner.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
DeMore. Aye. Walker. Yes. Murphy.
Yes, motion passes 5-0 for the consent agenda. Next is public comments, and that's your opportunity to step forward to the mic or online, raise your hand. You are to give your full name and full address, and I will give you the mic to speak. Is there anybody that wishes to speak at this time? Sir, come up, Mr. Munson. Please hit the mic. So on the bottom, there's a little bar there.
I understand on the 20th. Oh, yeah, Keith Munson, 1034 Wakazu, 2nd Ward, Petoskey. The 20th, I understand is comments on the budget, and I probably won't be here, so I have a few comments. I have seen a little bit of the budget, so there's a few things I want to make comments on. First of all, I think you should realize I saw the pie and the city income, how it was all derived, that you should remember that electric, water, sewer, property taxes, all of that comes from the residents. So that's a big part of the pie. And then I understand council has reinstated the administrative fee on our property taxes. So a number of years ago, residents expressed their disfavor with having it, and it was abolished. So it concerns me that you're not following that disapproval and have reinstated that. So that I'm just trying to convey that there's not, at least on my part, there's not a whole lot of trust between what goes on with the city and the back and forth with residents. Budget. I'm kind of interested in Parks and Recreation, and particularly the Winter Sports Park. And I saw that there's budgeted money for the lodge, repairs to the roof and other things in the lodge. I think the figure I saw was 200,000 for the roof. So I'm concerned that we're making things look nice, but the Winter Sports Park basically last year was dysfunctional. And I think that money should be put into making it operate like it's supposed to. Whereas there's that distrust again. Why is all this money going into the lodge? Yeah, it needs upkeep, but is it because people rent that for birthday parties? That's a moneymaker for the city. That brings me to another Parks and Recreation. I saw money budgeted for landscaping, planting flowers in our various parks. And again, I think the city would say, oh, we want our gateways to be appealing to those that come and visit. And again, I think we should be looking at putting that money into making our parks functional. And of particular interest to me is the push by the city to, even though it's not a city project, it's a Rotary project, is to put a roof over the ice hockey rink at the Winter Sports Park. So we're looking at, they're raising 1.2 million, something like that. And to me, I've had various conversations with Kendall Klingelsmith about this. And his reply to me, usually for why can't you put money in this area, like fix the rope tow, even put a clock outside on the building, because people don't like to skate around there looking at their phone to see what time it is. So this, to me, this seems like it's a big push by the city. You walk in the door downstairs, anybody that walks in there, okay, here's a big promotion for a roof over that hockey rink. And to me, I have gone through what benefits is this going to be? And again, I have come back to, it's going to be rented out as a moneymaker for the city. Let's go to, I've talked to a number of public safety officers. I've talked to council members about this. I've written a letter to the Public Safety Department. And I haven't gotten an answer other than from some of the officers about why. Think of a day like today, overcast, rainy. They don't have their headlights on all the time. And the only reply I've got from the officers is that it's not required. And I got no reply from public safety to my letter, but I think these people are here for our safety. Why aren't they promoting safety by having their headlights on? I think all city vehicles, when a person gets in them, puts their seatbelt on, they should turn on the headlights. And especially our public safety officers. And then let's end with the Michigan Maple Block property. I see the city just sucking up to a developer and saying, let's go ahead with this, even though the developer has just offered minimal guarantees of low-income housing. And I think, I know it's too late now, but that property should be turned into a manufacturing area that just give us some diversity in our economy here. So I have, I'm not getting much back in answers to my questions, and I just have a lot of I'm not connecting with the city on these issues.
Have you ever had a chance to meet with city manager or any of your concerns?
No.
That would probably be a good place to start. If you're looking for answers for questions. City council did elect to add a 1% tax collection fee, which many cities in this area, and I think two. So that was initiated by one developers. I'm sorry if you misstruck. I know the Winter Sports Park has plans for that addition. That I know I'm talking with Tim, I believe that thing is going to get more use actually in the summertime than it will in the winter time.
Okay, and winter activities are just left.
We're looking at big improvements in the Winter Sports Park right now.
Okay,
Including the Torah, including snowmaking. There's a lot of those things are being looked at right now. I know they met with Nubs or Boyne Highlands. Just to try to start looking at trying to get some equipment, some suggestions, some assistance. So I know we're proactive with that.
can I comment?
I'm going to give you a little because of the time. We're also, I agree with you. Police officers should have their lights on. Okay, I think we all probably, for the most part, agree with that. And
so
Shane is.
how does that happen?
You've never talked to us. And now I will make a suggestion to City Manager Horn to discuss with our police chief the inclusion of lights being on the cars. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great.
So I know, this other stuff, it's ridiculous for us to debate here on the Winter Sports Park, but other than I can tell you that they are initiating grants and they're initiating projects to get snow, rope tow, etc. going again. Okay.
Now can I comment?
Yeah, 1 minute.
Okay. The problem last year with the rink was there's a drainage problem.
Okay.
So the rink couldn't, it was much smaller than normal size. So I contacted Kendall
Okay,
a few weeks ago. Has anything been done? No, we don't have enough funds to do that. So I expect the same thing this year. The rink was open about 10 days. The lodge closed the first week in February. It was done.
I know. I think it was that way all over northern Michigan as far as rinks go, because I had nephews with kids up here trying to find a place to skate and called all over the place. And there was no place outside. They tried Charlevoix, Gaylord. They tried all over the place for an outside rink and there was just none. And it was a rough winter. We'll see what we can do and we will get back to you. I'll get back with you, okay?
Thank you.
Mayor,
Thank you. Ms. Walker.
if I may, I think that, I thank you, Keith, for coming out tonight in anticipation of a meeting and the public meeting that you wouldn't be able to attend. So thank you for doing your due diligence. I think this is exactly the kind of feedback that we're looking for as city council in terms of our budgetary process for next year. So, and I know, as the mayor mentioned, that we've really struggled with trying to figure out how to properly fund the operations of our Parks and Rec, because Parks and Rec, like a lot of other departments, can get grants for costs of expenses for the purchase of capital equipment. There's a variety of things that those departments qualify for in terms of grants, but operationally, we've always historically struggled with how to figure out how to budget accordingly for that and what that looks like. So I appreciate you highlighting those things because those are exactly the kind of things that we want to be looking at and we want to hear from our residents, regardless of what ward they live in terms of feedback on our budget. And I think I've taken notes on everything that you've mentioned tonight. And so this will help me in talking to other neighbors and other residents of the city of Petoskey as we move forward with the budgetary process and the public hearing for November the 20th. So, thanks.
And again, if I did not say thank you or be welcoming, I hope you felt that you were here in addressing council. Because I appreciate you coming out. Mr. Moore.
Hi, Keith. I too echo. I always appreciate input, whether we agree or disagree, but I just wanted to add that we did allocate a portion of ARPA funds already toward the winter sports park, and there's still more ARPA funds to be allocated, I think by the end of 2024, if I'm right.
Yes.
So there'll be more dialogue around that too. But those were allocated with an eye toward beginning to get that hill back functioning in terms of skiing and that sort of thing. So only a beginning, but just for your information.
$50,000.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else wish to speak to council at this time? Anybody online? There being none, let's turn to city manager updates. I turn it over to city manager Horn.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few comments you're going to hear from me ad nauseum probably in a little bit, so I'll keep my comments fairly brief on this piece of it, but certainly first part of the month, I wanted to highlight staff as we normally do with birthdays and work anniversaries. So November birthdays, Lisa Denoyer, birthday today. Our esteemed library director who's with us this evening, Val Meyerson, has a birthday tomorrow. Marty Flynn, water wastewater on the 8th of November. Lieutenant Mikulski, public safety on the 8th as well. Sydney Nielsen, water wastewater on the 10th. Bridget Lemure, finance department on the 12th. Mike Petrowski, public works, the 14th of November. Dave Krusky, parks on the 17th. And Detective Scott Lamont, public safety on November 18th.
Excuse me, we're missing.
There's something missing.
No, there's nothing missing there.
Twin there.
It is. It's like as the author, I get to use executive privileges and remove that. It's nothing to see here.
No, Miss Demore bought a beautiful cake for you.
It's wonderful. Yes, thank you.
But make sure you take it home and you and Michelle have some cake tonight.
Yeah, just what we need. Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, too.
So work anniversaries this month, a number of them, Hunter Arnold, Public Safety, 3 years, Will Bowen, Public Safety, 5 years this month. Mike Petrowski, Public Works, 7 years, Drew Levison, Electric Department, 7 years, Jordan Ray, Water Wastewater, 7 years. Lisa Blair in the Finance Department, 8 years, Bob Nichols, Public Works, 11 years, and Director Carr, Public Safety, 19 years this month. So many of us participated in the groundbreaking for the lofts at Lumber Square on Friday for this time of the year. We had a pretty decent day. They had a nice tent set up to get out of the wind, but it was well attended. Many folks from the state, both through MEDC and MISTA, as well as many of our local partners were in attendance as well. So it was a wonderful event. It was great to see, you know, as many of you have worked on this project, you know, through the last few years. It's great to see this next step. There's still a few things to work out from a financing standpoint with MISTA, but it was good to see this next step being taken, and hopefully we start to see some vertical construction, you know, going on from here. So very well attended. Again, appreciate the comments that the mayor provided representing the city, and we had good representation. Council Member Walker, Council Member Wagner were also in attendance, so it was a nice event. And then just tomorrow, reminder to get out and express your privilege and an opportunity to vote. Certainly appreciate Sarah's work, Audrey's work, and the finance staff that will be supporting Sarah tomorrow. It's going to be obviously a long day, a lot of prep work to get to this point. It'll be a long day tomorrow, so we certainly appreciate Sarah and all of her efforts to facilitate this opportunity for our residents. So we encourage folks to express their opportunity and vote. Any questions for me at this point?
City manager. Move right on.
Okay.
Next to the appointments. I brought to you names, we'll go one at a time, considerations for, first one is board of review. David Schuman, William Street, joined the group, of 3, along with city assessor, less than a year ago. He replaced somebody who dropped out of the position. And he needs to be reaffirmed, and I ask that you consider somebody making a motion to move on with him.
I'll be happy to make a motion, Mayor, to approve David Schuman to the Board of Review.
Support.
I have a motion from Ms. Walker, a second from Mr. Moore. Any other comments? I go to City Clerk Beck for roll.
Walker.
Yes.
Demore. Aye. Shields.
Yes.
Wagner.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes. Next is Ann Shrigley. That would be for the compensation board. She has lived here 47 years. She served on it the last time. This is the first reappointment that we have on that group. And so I'll bring her name forward.
So moved.
I have a motion from Mr. Moore and a second from Mr. Walker. Okay. We'll start over. I have a motion from Mr. Wagner and a second from Mrs. All right. It's all good.
Demore. Aye. Wagner.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Walker.
Aye.
Murphy.
Yes, next is Cody Wilcox for the Parks and Rec. I won't go into any details.
I'll be happy to nominate or the reappointment of Cody Wilcox for the Parks and Rec Commission.
Second.
I got a motion from Ms. Walker and a second from Mr. Shields. I go to City Clerk Beck for roll.
Walker. Aye. Shields.
Yes.
Demore.
Aye.
Wagner.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes. The last is Doug Buck for the Planning Commission. He's lived here 20 years. He's in banking and financing, which I think is a real strength to that board. Is the only one that is really in the financing business. I think he's been a real asset in giving advice and suggestions. Do I have a motion?
I move to reappoint Mr. Buck to the planning commission.
Support. I have a motion from Mr. Shields and a second from Mr. Wagner. I go to City Beck Clerk for roll.
Shields.
Yes.
Wagner.
Yes.
Demore.
Aye.
Walker. Yes. Murphy.
Yes. Now we're under new business. It's the adoption of a resolution that would authorize city manager and public safety director to execute the new 2024-26 FOPLC collective bargaining agreement covering the public safety lieutenants division. I turn it over to city manager Horn.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, we have 4 lieutenants that comprise this particular division. So we've had very good collaborative discussions similar to our PSO group. So they essentially followed the same outline as the PSOs. They kind of plowed the ground, if you will, and the lieutenants came in and we had great discussions with them. It was myself and the director. We didn't have to bring in labor attorneys. They didn't bring in business agents. We had very good discussions. So essentially the highlights of this collective bargaining agreement, very similar to the PSO group, over the next 3 years, 5, 4, and 4, wage increases. We do get a little bit of additional assistance with contributions to the benefit, the pension benefit over the next 3 years. We did also extend the same opportunity for them on the flat amount paid into their MERS healthcare savings plan. Same longevity bonuses to really try to keep our employees here, so they're not searching for potentially greener grass somewhere else. So reward longevity throughout this contract, similar to what we did with PSOs. We did increase their comp bank time up to 125 hours. And then we beefed up funeral leave for immediate family in this contract. We also, for this group, because this group is more seasoned from a 10-year standpoint, we added one more step to the vacation benefit side of things. So employees over 20 years of service, there was a little bit of a increase in their benefit on vacation benefits. So that's kind of the highlight of the lieutenants. Happy to answer questions. This was tentatively agreed to on this division, and so it's in front of you for concurrence.
Council. Ms. Walker,
I'll be happy to make a motion, Mayor.
thank you. Support. I have a motion from Ms. Walker, second from Mr. Wagner. Any other discussion?
I would like to mention something, if I may.
Please.
I found the collective bargaining new additions to that in order to retain and encourage others to apply to the job of public safety, really refreshing and inspirational. And I know that as a union worker myself, we're going to go back into collective bargaining agreements in the next year. And so I've really taken some of these great ideas and implementations, and hopefully we'll be able to share them with my employer in terms of other things that we can do to retain and incentivize people to come and work for local government. So I'm really very proud of the fact that the city was able to leverage this, and I look forward to hopefully being able to retain all these great people and also encourage others to come to work for the city of Petoskey.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? I go to Ms. Beck for roll.
Walker.
Yes.
Wagner.
Yes.
Demore. Aye. Shields.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes. Next, adoption of proposed resolution that would authorize city manager and the public safety director to execute the 2024 to 26 FOP LC collective bargaining agreement covering part-time public safety employees. I turn it over to city manager Horn.
Thank you, Mayor. So we have 5 part-time PSOs that do a wonderful job for us. They fill in and assist us as needed. So we looked at a few things in their collective bargaining agreement, which again expires December 31 of 23. Looking at wages, obviously, when we look at what we ask our PSOs from a training and certification standpoint, they were in this current contract right around just over $18 an hour. So we, in year one, bumped that up $2.54 in year one to start them on January 1st of 24 at $21 an hour. And then a 4-year or 4% increases in year 2 and 3 to get them to those grades that you see there. We currently do not have any grade 2 part-time, but there is, if we're able to secure someone that has these credentials that are listed here, those require a little bit more of an effort from a training and certification. So we would use those classifications, those grades that are there for grade 2, but we currently do not have anyone that fits that classification. But the other thing that we added in this contract that they did not have previously is the opportunity for them to get holiday shift differential. We asked them to come out on our holidays, pull away from their families, and we were not paying them the holiday pay to do that. So when you're thinking of Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and we needed to provide them or pull them into our rotation and to pull them away from families during those type of situations without that consideration, I thought was needed. So we did add that to the contract. Not that this is a normal routine by any means, but if we needed to use them, I felt like they should be recognized and get that opportunity for holiday shift pay. And then they also asked, and Audrey and I had a conversation about this. They asked if they could participate in the 457B plan, which is a opportunity for all of our full-time staff to take advantage of if they so choose. They asked, the part-timers asked to also be included in that. And obviously that would be 100% on their own. We would not contribute to that plan, but they asked for that opportunity and we were able to provide that to them. So they will be able to participate in that plan. Again, 100% on their own. So that's kind of their contract, fairly straightforward. Again, good collaborative discussions with that group as well.
Sounds good. Any other? Mr. Shields?
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to approve the part-time PSO collective bargaining agreement.
Support.
A motion from Mr. Shields, a second from Ms. Demore. Any other discussion? I think it's only fair, and I think it's great that you're looking out for part-time officers, considering the pay is what it is. I think it's great that we reimburse them a better amount than just regular pay. So thank you for looking out for staff, basically, which is a part of all of us. I go to City Clerk Beck for roll.
Shields.
Yes.
Demore. Aye. Wagner.
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes, motion passes again 5-0. Okay, also on this list is a presentation of the city's recommended 2024 annual budget and adoption of resolutions that would schedule a public hearing for November 20th. This motion tonight, we will be getting the information and possibly setting that up, but we will not be approving this budget tonight, just so everybody knows. But also you set the property millage rates that have been recommended for
Okay.
fiscal year 2024. It's in this pamphlet right here. This is one place to start. I know you all brought your other book. I turn it over to City Manager Horn.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to give again kudos to Audrey and her finance team, really all of our department heads. We were talking before we started. Similar to the election, it really takes a group effort to put this document together. There's a lot of input that goes into this document, a lot of feedback. Mike left the room, but Mike has a number of budgets within this document as well, and he's very hands-on in this process as well, as are all of our department heads. So again, a lot of effort, a lot of staff time goes into this document. It's obviously very important because we want to make sure that we're representing your priorities in this document. And just as a reminder, these are, go ahead and click the next one. These are our action plan priorities, parks and public spaces, infrastructure, economic development, downtown development, sustainability, affordable workforce housing, and community engagement. So hopefully you see that we're kind of checking the boxes on these priorities throughout this document, throughout this budget, because we certainly want the budget to reflect your priorities as we move forward. Just an overview of the budget itself, the current operating and capital budget, you can see that number 33.6 million. The 24 operating capital budget is just over 35 million. And then you may be asking, well, what's the change here? So I've tried to highlight the big changes within 23 and 24's budget. One, public safety, the 23 budget, you can see 3.6 million in public safety. The proposed 24 budget for public safety is just over 3.8 million. So a difference of 217,000. And that's a lot of that is salaries and wages, as we are finally getting to a point where we're almost fully staffed. We have a couple more folks within the academy that will be coming out after the first part of the year. So that department will be really almost fully staffed at that point. And then based on what we were able to do with the collective bargaining to make sure that we're taking care of our staff, that reflects that difference as well there. Parks and Rec, 1.7, just over 1.7 million in 23, 1.9 in 24 for a difference of 221. So that's a little deceiving in that under Parks and Rec, they have buildings and grounds underneath their budget, underneath Kendall's budget. So as you know, during the capital, and I'll try not to spend a lot of time on capital because we've gone through that already, but there are some things we'll need to go back and kind of look at from a capital standpoint. But if you recall, during capital budget time, we presented $100,000 for public safety vehicle extraction system for both this station and then the west station. Essentially, that is to get the exhaust out of the building as we're testing our equipment and running our equipment. So that falls under the buildings and grounds budget. So that's within Parks and Rec. So that's $100,000 capital investment in that budget. And then also on Parks and Special Facilities budget, we have their contracted services is up in that section, and that's mainly due to $200,000 of, if you recall, we were able to receive $1 million grant for the wheelway engineering and design with a $200,000 match. So that $200,000 is reflected in the Parks and Special Facilities budget. We hope we don't have to spend that amount. We know that the Trails Council has some funds that they're ready to contribute. And it's possible that some of our other partners will step up and help us kind of bridge that match requirement. But we do have it allocated in our budget at the full amount because we want to make sure that we're able to fulfill as the applicant and as the awardee of the grant, we are responsible ultimately for that grant. So, and then the right-of-way fund, The 23 budget was 1.2 million. The proposed 24 budget is 2.1 million. So the right of way, that's transferring from the right of way, that 1.2 million to the general street fund. And $900,000 to the local street fund. So as you recall, we'll go through this in a minute, but our local streets that we're anticipating in 24 are East Mitchell Street, Bayview Avenue, Rose, Winter Park Lane, and Balsam Avenue. So that kind of transfers those funds. And then we're preparing also for 25. That's when our next large reconstruction project will happen, and that'll be Howard Street. So we're kind of gearing up for that. That's about a $1.7 million project, just that reconstruction and all the undergrounding associated as well. So some overviews continuing. We have at this point earmarked a 4% across the board cost of living adjustment for all of our non-union employees and staff. Associated with that, the benefit piece of this, we follow the hard caps that are set by Department of Treasury. So these are adjusted on an annual basis by Treasury. So we offer essentially 3 healthcare plan options with Blue Cross Blue Shield, the Blue Care Network, 1 HMO and 2 PPO plans. So we pay the premium up to those state cap levels based on if it's a single person, individual +1, or family coverage. So we cover those premiums up to the state cap amount. Anything beyond that, if we're able to receive or see if actual healthcare premiums are below that state cap, then we do contribute to the employee's HSA, health savings account. And we've been able to also provide HSA funds for our employees. Payments have been made to the HSA accounts as premiums in the past have been under the state cap. So that those caps have gone up. They will go up 4.1% from the previous year. We were able to get a fairly reasonable. I guess everything is subject to interpretation, but the Blue Cross presented us a 3.95%, and that's an average of all the different. If it's a single, individual, or family plan, if you average those, it's about a 3.95% average increase for us, which in the big scheme of things is fairly reasonable. We've seen much worse than that. So we will continue to proceed with Blue Cross Blue Shield as our healthcare provider in 24. Some things that are also in flux, if you will. We have for the city planner, as you know, we're using a contractual planner, John Eichelangeli, Beckett and Rader. I'm not 100% sure what that's going to look like. I've gotten some feedback that maybe we want to consider a full-time planner in-house. I will say budgetarily, going contractual is a savings to us. John is not in the office every day as our full-time planner would be, so we don't pay as much from a benefit and salary standpoint as we would a full-time planner. However, I also know that customer service is important as well. So that's right now, as the budget is put together, it's kind of a hybrid system right now. So 50% contractual, going with continuing this relationship through maybe the spring to early summer, and then maybe looking to fill that position full time if that's the desire of council to move in this direction. I will certainly continue to get your feedback, and I certainly value that. So that's one thing that's somewhat in flux. City assessor, as you know, we use a contractual assessor that will likely have an agreement back in front of you, because that expires the end of November. So we would look to continue that contractual relationship. Obviously, that's a position that is filled by council. So based on your input, we will continue moving forward in that contractual manner unless we hear otherwise. So those are some things that are still somewhat in flux, even though we've kind of moved ahead with some ideas, but we'll certainly take your input as we move forward. So the MERS unfunded accrued liability, this is a continual thing that we're looking at, making sure, and this is something that I certainly value what the city has done over the past 6 years, as we've really gone above and beyond what we're required to do from our responsibility with the pension. And that's really, kudos to city council, to staff who've made that commitment to go above and beyond. I think that's really put us in a very enviable position across the state, being at 91% funded. Many of our partners across the state would love to be in that strong of a position from a pension standpoint, but that doesn't happen by accident. That's based on, again, good fiscal management. And then again, that's a credit to former finance directors, current finance directors, staff, city council. So we've anticipated in 24 an additional 600,000. This would be above and beyond payment for our unfunded accrued liabilities in 24. These additional contributions would come from general fund, and then our enterprise funds as well, where our employees reside. So the 24 budget overall is based on the current millage rate of 13.1523 mils. No rollbacks or increases for 24. As we all know, the Headley Amendment, what that does, if taxable value exceeds the rate of inflation, tax levies must be rolled back to the rate of inflation or 5%, whichever is less. That's something we've unfortunately had to live with since '94, and we've certainly felt that and the impacts of that decision. So also no utility rate increases for 24. That's water, sewer, electric. So that will be status quo. We are anticipating rate studies for water, sewer, electrical in 24 to kind of proceed on that 5-year kind of forecast what the next 5 years is going to look like for those enterprise funds. But within 24, there'll be no additional rate increases. So again, this kind of gives you a general overview of our millages, starting with general fund, our cleanup, right of way, and then library, where those are, that tallies just over 13 mils. Our taxable value, what we're projecting at 655 million. So you can see what tax revenue that brings in. And then the TIFs that we have associated with that support, respective projects within the community. You can see where that is as well. So cleanup, that's solid waste, rubbish, leaves, brush, recycling program. The right of way are the public improvements within the streets, the sidewalks. So as we have done in the past, City Council will formally establish millage rates in June. It's our recommendation to stay at the same rates as we have currently in 23. I've always found it interesting, and I know I'm probably beating a dead horse and maybe folks get tired of hearing about it, but the impacts of Headley, based on charter, we can allocate up to 10 mils for general operating millage. That is down to 7.2306. So what is that budget impact? That budget impact today would be 1.8 million. So that's 1.8 million that we're not able to put into action. You multiply that out by, it becomes a kind of depressing exercise. But so you can see that's just for general operating. Then you have right of way, library millages. There's significant impacts that are felt by those agencies as well because of the rollbacks that we've had, due to Headley as well. The Act 425, as you know, that is the intergovernmental agreement that we have with Resort Township that essentially transferred Bay Harbor development into the city. So we pay the equivalent to Resort Township, equivalent to 2.5 mils of Bay Harbor's taxable value. So for 24, that's about $755,000 back to Resort Township. So getting specific to the general fund, you can see proposed revenues over expenditures. And just to tell you the story in 23, when we were sitting here in 23, we were anticipating about a $72,000 drawdown of general fund. That is actually going to be based on estimates. And again, these are estimates. We have a couple more months of the fiscal year yet to get through, but we'll likely have about a $400,000 contribution back to the fund balance on the positive side. In 24, we're pretty much break even. There's not a lot of it's pretty much we're gaining about 17,000 if everything materialized as we are today. Obviously, we will be very conservative as we manage the budget, as we always are, and hopefully this will be a little bit better when we get to this point next year. But that's how it is in front of us as we stand today. So some other highlights within general fund. So public safety, we talked about personnel costs going up as one of the reasons for that. Buildings and grounds, the $100,000 for the capital for public safety, and then the parks and special facilities that we talked about earlier. So those are some of the bigger reasons why that budget went up slightly. We are anticipating about a 4% increase in taxable value. So that's about $28 million in additional taxable value, which results in about $370,000 of revenue to the city. State shared revenue, a slight increase there, mainly for reimbursement of election expenses. We may have 3, could have 4. We will have 3, could have 4 in 24. So we will get some reimbursement from the state for some of those. So that bumps up our state shared revenue as well, but it's a $49,000 increase from 23. And just some charts to show you visually. I like to share visual things because that's how I like to see things. But you can kind of see over the course of the last 8 years or so what our general fund has done from a property tax revenue standpoint. So very slow, methodical increase, again, due to some of the constraints that we have to live under. So the blue is general fund taxes. So you can see in 2015, we were at just under 3.3 million. We're at 4.3 million in 24. You can see that slow climb. And then the yellow is the total property tax revenues, 5.6 million in 2015, up to 7.4 million in 24. Again, just showing you visually, these are the totals from a revenue standpoint. General fund, so property tax revenues brings in about 45% of our general fund revenue. Transfers brings in just over 2.5 million at 24%. Parks and Rec through user fees, through the campground. Brings in just under 2 million of revenue. And again, you can see state shared revenues, grants, public safety, licenses and permits. And we are seeing a little bit better interest income as we have seen in the past 3 or 4 years. That is seeing a little bit more of a bump. So that's good news. But expenditures, again, in Parks and Rec and public safety, they usually will fight this out. Who's number one on the expenditure side? They're pretty much neck and neck. But this year, public safety gets the award at just over 3.8 million. Parks and Rec is right there at 3.6. And you can kind of see where the rest of them are and where we're pulling from for the general fund for just over $10.3 million in expenditures overall. Fund balance, it's good to see that fund balance continues to inch upward. Again, that's good fiscal management over the past many years. General fund balance was 3.1 million in 2013. We're at 6.4 million in 2024. And then unrestricted. Unrestricted was 2.3 in 2013, and we're up to 4.5 million in 24. So restricted is what we have for the marina and the refuse collection. We set aside about 1.9 million, and we'll set aside about 1.9 million for 24. This is for bond debt obligations and for maintenance for those two funds, and that's what makes up the restricted amount. And then this just shows as well a different way to show it. But kind of shows where we've come from with unrestricted. General GFOA. It's kind of the national oversight committee, if you will, on general operating for financial operating data. Their recommendation is to have not less than 2 months of general fund operating revenues or expenditures for your fund balance, and that would result that would be about 1.7 million for us. So you can see that we're well above that. We're about 4.5 million and unrestricted, so we're in a pretty strong position, well above the minimum recommendation. Showing again the MERS UAL, the unfunded accrued liability, kind of our journey, if you will, to get to where we're at today. So back in 18, we were at 82% funded. You can kind of see what our UAL, which is our unfunded accrued liability, was in 18 and where it's at today. It's a little depressing to think, in 2022, when we paid that 600,000 extra above and beyond, we kind of stayed status quo, which I guess it could be worse. We could have gone, backwards, but and that's based on a lot of different variables. But we were able to kind of stay the course, if you will, from a unfunded standpoint and our percent funded standpoint. So we've made some significant changes to our collective bargaining group. So really that's reducing pension benefits to all 4 of our employee divisions. All of our new hires now move into a DC, defined contribution pension, and then increase in our annual contribution. That's how the city has been able to kind of pull those numbers down from a liability standpoint. So again, good fiscal management. So we're anticipating, again, another 600,000 additional payment above and beyond for 24. Again, graphically showing our taxable value, what this has done really since 2010. So we all know what happened, when we back in 2008, 2009. It's taken us 9 years to kind of recoup some of those losses. Again, thanks to the restrictions that we are working under. But we have exceeded the losses that we experienced back in 08, 09, and we're making good progress going forward. So that's good news, good trajectory. Running through quickly some of the highlights on capital. I mentioned this as well. Buildings and grounds. These are the 2 vehicle exhaust extraction systems for both public safety East Lake Street and public safety West. It's $100,000 commitment to make sure that we're operating and our employees are not breathing in, vehicle exhaust as they test equipment. Moving on to the next, parks and special facilities. Pennsylvania Park upgrades. This is, I have an asterisk here. This is really not a general fund project. This is 50,000 is coming from parking, 120,000 out of the street fund, 75,000 out of electric, and then we did get a $150,000 grant to do that widening of the sidewalk and amenities that are associated with the Pennsylvania Park upgrades that we're anticipating in 24. Winter Sports Park building and roof upgrades, we have 200,000 in the budget for that. The pavilion project, we have $100,000 for that, and that is as well more than hockey. That will have other users that will use that facility with a covered opportunity, whether it's portable pickleball, whether it's our summer programs are able to use it as well. Soccer, there's a number of users that will use that facility above and beyond hockey. As we have in years past, and again, kudos to you for making this commitment. We put in the budget every year a certain amount for resurfacing of the wheelway. We were just able to complete that a few weeks back, this last stretch. So we have another $150,000 of funds to continue that. Kendall always says it's like painting the Mackinac Bridge. When you get all of it done, you're back doing it all over again. So it's just one of those things that you just have to keep on top of. We do have funds for master planning a few of the parks, Arlington, Pennsylvania, and Washington, to make sure that we're getting good feedback from the community on what they want to see in those 3 locations and updating that going forward. I mentioned the wheelway design or the wheelway design engineering, the slope project, the grant match. And then I don't know why I have that resurfacing on there twice, but not sure what that second one is. That might be an error on my part. Apologize. We do have some funds also out of the Tifa fund down on the Bayfront or Resource Center landscaping. We have a few of the facilities have gotten kind of overgrown, so we're going to do some thinning out, putting some hardscape in, making that more usable space. And then our big project through the Tifa fund next year is the Sunset Park Improvement Project. Streets and drainage, a number of streets. We have miscellaneous pavement repair and preservation. This, I just lost my notes. Yeah, okay. So the first one is East Mitchell. This is the project we're partnering with the county. We would be doing East Mitchell from division to the city limit. The county is going to pick it up and get their stretch done as well. And then the second, miscellaneous pavement preservation and repair. These are all of our local streets. Rose Street from Clinton to Winter Park Lane. Winter Park Lane from Arlington to Winter Sports Park. Balsam Avenue from Arlington to the dead end. And then Howard Street. This is East Mitchell to Michigan Street. We would anticipate removing the railroad tracks within Howard and the sidewalk area south of East Mitchell. Electric department. So we do have continual need to update our GIS system. So there's funds in there to do that. We have a number of conversion projects throughout the city. The Jennings Avenue, this is portions of Jennings, Howard, Jefferson, and Waukezu. The Howard conversion project, this is portions of Howard, Fulton, Petoskey, and Grove. And then the Mitchell Road conversion project. Again, these are undergrounding above ground utilities, electrical utilities. This one would be Mitchell Road, Hill Street to the Methodist Church. You can see those prices to do that, estimates. And then we have a residential conversion project in the Morgan, Preby, and Hillcrest areas for 24 programmed as well. And then one of the things we started doing in 23 with Becky and the downtown's help is looking at our electrical equipment landscaping areas that many of our our equipment is on the ground and there's trees and things that are kind of overgrown. We certainly want to block the views, but we want to make sure that we're attractive when we do that as well. So we have done some upgrades in 23 and we're programming additional upgrades, making sure that our equipment and landscaping is looking nice and fresh and clean. So we have funds in there to continue to do that. And then the contribution to the Pennsylvania Park project as well. In the water department, we always budget for miscellaneous water main spot repairs. We just had over the weekend a water main break on Balsam. So we always have these funds set aside because we cannot predict when those type of things will happen. So we have funds for spot water main repairs. Our big project for water is Bayview Avenue, putting in new water mains from East Mitchell to the dead end. We have Emmett Street. This is East Mitchell to Michigan. This is based on if there's any development, we want to have funds available. If that development moves forward, we're not 100% sure that's going to happen, but we do have funds set aside in case that does go forward. Upgrades to the Ingalls Pump Station improvements at 40,000, lead and copper rule inventory. That's a continual requirement at 50,000. And then we added, based on city council's input, some money in here to really help us research and engineer some potential improvements to our dead ends where we have water quality issues and concerns. So we have funds in there to look into some of those concerns. On the sewer side, similar, we have miscellaneous spot repairs. We have some money for the Bayview Avenue project as well. And then the Emmett Street project, again, is developer driven. Our big capital project here is some control updates for our aeration tank blowers at the wastewater treatment plant at $450,000 within the sewer fund. Motor vehicle pool, motor pool, a few items here, replacing a 2003 front end loader is our biggest item in this. This is off of Public Works. Another Public Works is a 2012 plow truck, which we just talked about earlier this year or earlier this meeting. And then Parks has a replacement of a front mount mower. And then we have one public safety vehicle that we're looking to replace in the motor pool for 24. So some of the challenges that I've kind of highlighted on this slide, we kind of talked about this in the past, could there be opportunities as we forecast needs going forward for potential dedicated funding for parks? We talked about all the impacts of Headley and what that looks like and the loss of revenue that we see because of that. Could there be further discussions on exploring some dedicated funds for our parks? We have wonderful natural and community and spaces. There's a high bar that we need to make sure that we maintain those spaces to how our residents expect us to maintain those. So that puts a strain on us. And again, that additional strain is we can't hire as many seasonals as we've had in the past for a variety of reasons. So that requires more work to our full-timers, and they're pulled in a lot of different directions, but that we certainly want to maintain a high standard. And I think everyone takes pride in their work. So that's an opportunity to have further discussions on what that could look like in parks and see if potentially would the community support dedicated funding for operating our parks. We still have significant development pressures outside of the city, and that impacts our utilities. As you know, we were able to receive grant funds through the Rural Development Fund. So we are partnering with Resort Township and Bear Creek Township to really look at what their development needs look like, how we can partner with them to make sure that we're able to assist them in development. But first and foremost, our desire is to make sure that we have significant enough utility, enough pressure, enough flow for our residents first and foremost. But if we have the ability to sell outside of the city and partner on development projects, certainly we want to be a good neighbor as well. So we will be going through that in 24 doing some studies with our partners, seeing what that looks like from a water capacity standpoint and a hydraulic model update. The shoreline erosion control, that's an ongoing thing. As you know, we're exploring that. We're engineering and designing. We're not sure what that number looks like. It's kind of in flux right now. And so we'll have to work through that by probably September, October of next year. We'll know what that firm estimate looks like. And then the challenge becomes how do we rise to the challenge and meet that? And that's likely going to be leaning on our partners in Lansing for an appropriation, and then our partners here in Emmett County as well, kind of trying to meet that need. Obviously it's a wonderful resource that a lot of us use, and we certainly want to see that restored, but we just don't know what that number is quite yet. Retaining and recruiting staff, that's an ongoing challenge. We do not have funds in here to complete this study, but certainly something I want to explore at some point along the way. I think we need to have a compensation and classification study done. I think we've tried to do this in-house over the last several years. I think having a third party come in and really look at where we're at currently, where we could go in the future. There could be some positions that we are above the threshold, and obviously we want to know, we want to make sure we're taking care of our employees for sure, but we want to make sure we're competitive without overpaying as well. So we want to make sure we have a good analysis and study of where we're headed from an employee retaining and recruiting standpoint. This budget does not anticipate, going into that direction, but it's certainly something I want to just keep out there on our radar. Community engagement, there's still some things that I think we could enhance that we're not addressing in this budget. Audio visual improvements for this facility, for this room right now, I think is still in need. As you listen to the audio on the remote side of things, it's sometimes challenging to hear. So I think upgrading what we're currently doing, especially if the desire is to continue in this remote world, which I assume we're only going to do more of this going forward. So I think having that on our radar is something we certainly need to do. As well as agenda management system. This is something that I've done in other communities where we streamline the process. It certainly makes it easier for the city clerk as she's putting the agenda together. It makes it easier for all department heads as they upload items for the agenda. Having a software system that helps us stay on track. It helps us be uniform in our packet, so we're not we're all following the same guidelines. That's certainly something that I want to keep on our radar at some point. And then a citizen request app of some sort, I think as we try to continue to engage with our residents is something that we need to kind of keep on our radar as well. And then I have this on as well as that city hall access control, making sure that we're from a security and safety standpoint, looking out for as terrible as we unfortunately have to deal with these things sometimes when we look at things that go on around us from a safety and security standpoint. There's certainly things that I think we can beef up here without creating any sort of compound situation, but that protects the building, it protects our most valuable asset, which are our staff that work out of here. Certainly something that, again, I want to keep on our radar. And then the other thing is I didn't add this to the list, but it came up tonight. The ARPA funds, we need to have early in 24 that discussion again. Where you would like to go with that. I think it would be nice to kind of put those dollars to work. In my opinion, we have some obligations to do that within the 24 by the end of the 24 calendar year. So having those discussions early in 24 will be important as well. And just provide you kind of where we've been to this point. Tonight is our first reading. We will publish the notice of the public hearing, which will be set for November 20th. This will be the second reading and the public hearing. At that point, we could proceed with adopting the budget if council wants to take, we do have some time in this calendar. If we wanted to take that extra meeting, we certainly could do that and get into the first week of December if council chooses to do that. But this is how we tentatively have set the schedule out going forward. We have posted this budget in its entirety on the website as of Wednesday, November 1st. To this point, as we stand today, I don't think we received any verbal or written comments.
Correct.
Okay. So that's kind of the overview of the budget. Happy to answer questions or get feedback.
Do you want to do a deep dive in this right now? If you do, let's begin. If you have questions, Mr. Shields.
Thank you, Mayor, and hi, everyone. Manager Horn, thank you so much for the presentation, and I wanted to make a comment of thanks for the layout of the budget and the text going in before the financial statements. I found it very well organized, and it helped me in my learning process. So thank you to Ms. Plath and all these department heads for a great report and helped me in my understanding of this of our budget, and also it lays out very clearly how just great fiscal management that we do as a city, while also meeting a lot of our needs, a lot of our community needs. And you started out with the action plan priorities in your presentation, and I appreciate that. You know, while we do meet our needs very well, there are a lot of goals and initiatives and actions that we still want to pursue, and so that will require continued iterations and creativity on the part of the city. So I just want to dive in. I have several questions, Mayor, whether we get into them all tonight or not, that's fine. I just start with the first one. I'll move up to my list, up higher in my list, thanks to Mr. Munson's comments earlier. And my question was, can we, I'm not asking for writing a budget line item for this, but wondering if my ask is, can we know the costs for preserving the ice rink? I brought this concern up when we were talking about how to spend those ARPA funds, and you know, suggested that we put those money towards the ice rink. I was told that those funds would be far exceeding the $50,000 to $100,000 we had. So, but to facilitate a discussion in future years, can we know what we do, some like make a plan for what it could take, and we can put those into long-term funding. And hearing Mr. Munson's comments, maybe, yeah, my thought was preserving the ice, but maybe there is a lower cost fix of the drainage issue, and what could be a plan for that, and what could be the funding for that.
Now, you're not talking about refrigeration.
I am, yes.
Okay.
Refrigeration. That's what's I know of. There may be other solutions that I don't know of.
Are you talking of covered? You're talking of covering it down?
No, this is refrigeration is a electrical power generation technical solution to keeping the ice cold. So, and I say that to just emphasize how valuable the Winter Sports Park year round. This is in both and I think there's a great. I applaud us looking at the year round aspect of the Winter Sports Park, but looking and emphasizing the namesake of the winter use. I've had Ward 2 residents share their desires, concerns for us, maintaining this as a destination for not only our community members, but visitors to also utilize a high quality winter sports park. Thank you.
So you want, is this?
No, I'll let someone else jump in and I'll jump in later.
Why don't you continue since?
And defer to, that's why I gather my thoughts on the next one. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Anyone else wish to speak? Mr. Moore.
I just have a couple questions. So I'm looking at the 2024 general fund looks like it's page 1, where it's talking about the revenues. And under grants, it's showing a loss or a decrease of over $400,000. And I think that has to do with the push forward of the Winter Sports Park grant and maybe the Boer property grant. Do you know?
What does your footer say besides general fund? You say
General fund financials,
Okay,
page
yeah.
1,
Gotcha. Yep.
under activities, revenues, activities, grants is the first line, far right.
So you're asking why the change of over $400,000?
And I think it has to do with the move of that Winter Sports Park grant and the Boer property, maybe. That's what I'm trying to determine.
Yeah, the Boer property was just over $200,000. Yeah. And in 23, so. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
So that's in 23. So 24, we're not anticipating as many, grants within the budget. So that's why that dropped off. So the Boer property and the Winter Sports
Yeah.
Park, yes.
Okay. That's what I thought there. And this whole lead and copper rule materials replacement thing is like a thorn in my side.
Mhm.
And so my question is, how do we even estimate amount of money to allocate for this when we don't know, going into somebody's house?
Right.
Yeah,
That's a great question, and we're kind of struggling with that as well. We were always under the interpretation and always operate under this mode that, there's private and public side of utilities. And with lead and copper, when we know that there's an issue, we're now going all the way into the house with service upgrades, which is different than how we've ever operated. There are potentially grant dollars that may be trickling up this way. They went for the distressed communities first. We haven't kind of moved that needle quite yet, but hopefully we will get some grant dollars to help us through this process. But it is kind of a moving target. We have to do so many explorations. So we hydro excavate down to see what the utility is. So we have a number of those from an inventory standpoint that we have to knock off each year. And then obviously based on what we see, we need to plan for those upgrades at that point. But we do have a number of these that we have to provide that inventory on an annual basis and report back.
okay, I have a couple more if
Yeah.
you want me to.
Please.
Okay, so I'm gonna take you back to the general fund financials, page 1, where we were. And again, I think I know the answer to this one, but when we look under expenditures, general administration, city planner, again, to the far right column, there's that negative number. And I think that's because the code enforcement position was moved to public safety.
To public safety, yes.
Okay, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then right underneath that is an increase in economic development of $800,000. I'm just curious what that is allocated toward, or what the use would be. And thanks, Audrey, for paging through everything on the spot
I'm
here.
getting there.
Take your time.
Okay, we are still in, you said planner,
It's right under city planner. It's economic development under general administration, and it shows an increase in the budget of $8,000 under the
$8,000. Included in that is the $10,000 expenses for, what is it, NE?
NLEA and housing
NLEA.
dollars.
and there's 40,000 for art. I saw these different
Yeah,
delineations.
40 for art.
I just wasn't sure why it was an increase over last year. It also has airport authority and sister city that was
Yeah,
under there.
that's
Yeah,
right.
airport authority would be about 2,000 more. I think it was 15 or 16,000. And it's budgeted for 17,300, I think, this year.
Mhm.
But that is not the whole 8,000 that you're looking for. I would have to get back with you on that.
That's fine. Thank you. I appreciate it on the spot.
May I follow and Mr. Moore's comment about the code enforcement officer? Correct me if I'm wrong, just trying to remember our discussions in the past about this. I don't remember discussions about it being moved to the public safety department. I thought the idea of the code enforcement officer was to take some of the burden off the public safety department. And this be a something that's supporting the planning department, that's the planner. And I was curious what the thinking is behind that decision.
I think it's more funding, isn't it? Purpose of where it's funded, just a place keeping for it.
Yeah, code enforcement supports both public safety and planning functions. Director Carr is the code enforcement officer's direct report. So it just made sense to move that underneath the Director Carr's budget and public safety as our public safety, or as our code enforcement officer answers to that department head. But certainly he's working in planning functions as well. It just made sense from a reporting structure standpoint to move it into public safety. Because that was, as the director kind of provides that day-to-day oversight, having that within his budget probably made the most sense.
There isn't more labor though for the public safety. That actually takes a burden off of public safety. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Thank you. Maybe I save this discussion for later, but I do have some initial concerns which may not be well founded about that move and the emphasis that the code enforcement in the public safety realm will have versus the planning. I know a lot of the discussions and my vote for this position was that it is focusing on, rental, short-term rental, IPMC, some of those complaint driven versus just canvassing the neighborhood.
Yeah, and all that's still happening. For sure. We're pretty much a complaint driven. It's a complaint driven process, but.
Thank you.
And he does spend a lot of time with Lisa Denoyer, the zoning administrator. So they do work hand in hand with public safety also. Because a lot of the calls that come in, there's kind of a fine line, whether it is public safety or if it's more to do with the zoning or nuisance.
He works pretty closely with the fire inspectors and IPMC related items where they're going together on looking at structures, inspecting structures. One from a physical safety standpoint, making sure that we're safe, but also just the making sure that there's a backup there. And he has radio access and things like that to call out on. There's times that people aren't necessarily happy to see him roll up on their property, so we want to make sure that we're sensitive to that.
I've been talking with him just 3 days ago, mentioned that he had worked with 4 or 5 short-term rentals, so was shutting them down. So he's very active in that part. So that was that one day, the other day when he told me. That was what he was doing the last 2 days, was going after short-term rentals.
Thank you.
Ultimately, they're both general fund entities, so I don't know that it makes a big difference which fund we're pulling out of ultimately at the end of the day. But this just made operationally more sense to have it structured this way, but we'll certainly take that feedback.
Mr. Moore.
So where in this world do these ARPA funds reside? Where are they
Where are they being held?
Yeah.
They're being held in unearned income right now within the balance sheet.
Okay,
And they're in a separate bank account.
okay. And then relative to like tax abatements that we award, they don't show up in a line item or anything. They appear as a reduced amount of tax revenue, or how does?
Within the general fund, they do show up as a reduced amount because they're being the revenue is going into the Tifa fund.
Okay, so where would I see it on this? Where is,
It's coming in or
where we can see the impact of the reduction?
impact of the reduction? You can see it as income within the Tifa,
Okay,
if I'm understanding your question correctly.
maybe it's not a good question.
Maybe I don't understand it.
But isn't it in the future?
Yeah, we're not-
2024.
Yeah, we're not seeing that in 24. That'll be going forward.
And then will it appear in a way that we can see it?
That would be a question for Audrey on how that,
Less taxes received.
I think, yeah.
I think the diagram that we use.
The whole amount of what is collected by the city in taxes.
Yes, the gross
And then-
amount, and then there's the reductions.
Sort of like one that states what the actual tax collected is
Mhm,
after the deduction for paying off tips.
correct. And it's within that graph.
So it's just the difference between those two numbers.
Correct, between the three TIFs and the act for Bay Harbor, the 2.5. For Resort Township.
I will think on this. If I need further clarification.
It is on page.
Well, I saw the TIF page in
Page 4,
the handout.
second one. The narrative.
Thank you.
Page 4, introduction narrative.
Not Shane's intro, it's under tab 1 in the actual general fund. and
Okay.
narrative. But the same chart was in his.
This,
PowerPoint.
okay.
Well,
So whatever's easier.
Yeah.
The binder
Oops,
maybe?
that's it.
one of the things that we've talked about as staff, there's some duplication in some of our stuff, which I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I'm a learner that needs to hear something multiple and see something multiple times, so you may see some redundancy in some of this, but I think that's good, that's healthy. That's how we learn, by keeping that, at least I do anyway, but there's some redundancy within this. Some charts are a little bit, some of it is redundant, but again, that's good visual stuff on how we learn.
Okay, I have one more thing I don't understand. So when I look at the 2024 budget overview. That's this sheet.
Which page is that?
It doesn't seem to have a page number.
That's what-
Oh, in the very front.
Right after Shane's signature in the budget binder, but
It looks like this.
like the 9th page.
Yep.
Okay, so I know you talked about this, Shane, but again, I just don't fully understand. So under governmental funds, we see these increases of expenditures under local, street, and right of way. Okay,
Yep.
and then down below, under less duplications, under fund transfers right of way, we see a big increase there. Under transfer for right of way. Can you just kind of give me an overview explanation of what all is happening there?
So from the right of way transfers.
Yeah.
So we're transferring funds out of the right of way fund to support street projects, local street projects. In this case, those are the ones that I mentioned, the rows, the
The $900,000 for
Yeah.
the local street
and
and
then
then
1,200 or 1.2 million for
the general
the
street.
general
fund.
streets. No, that's where those two funds are going.
So how does the money flow into the right of way fund?
It's a millage,
Aha, okay. And then it,
and then we redistribute that based on projects.
okay. All right,
So we're also gearing up, as I mentioned, for the next big reconstruct is Howard Street. So we're trying to prepare for that one through that fund as well.
okay. And then under governmental funds, local street, that's a substantial increase there in the expenditures as well. And that funding comes from in that governmental funds, local street, the far right column.
Right, the total,
1.2, yeah, So last year that was about $486,000. So I'm just curious, like, where does that money flow from?
So they stagger, Mike kind of staggers the project, so every year you'll see more distributed to local versus. Major street funds.
Okay.
So the total, the 1.259.
Yeah.
900,000 of it is from the right of way. Being
Okay.
transferred into there, and the
Okay.
rest is from state shared revenues. That
Great.
flow into both the major and the local streets.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions, Ms. Lamore? Mr. Shields?
Thank you, Mayor. This is in the general street fund, page 2. It talks about, I don't know if we need to go there, but I can just. My question is, it talks about in there, the plan for street trees to be planted, but it doesn't give detail on locations or more details on that. And that's okay, but my request is that last question is the request that Mr. Troutman had we talked about in previous meetings about planting trees along West Mitchell, thank you. And would like to ask that we make that a priority for tree planting along West Mitchell.
I'd like to have somebody first take a look to see if that's even feasible. I went over there and looked at that the other day after meeting with Mr. Troutman, which I do every other week. I took a look at that and I'm not sure where he's talking of sidewalks, if it's on the south side. It's all sidewalk.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure how that would enter in as far as accessibility for use on the sidewalk, because it is so narrow there. I walked it the other day just to take a better look at it. I'm not sure where they would plant trees along that area. I think I would like to have Kendall with his consultant take a look at that prior to making any scheduling of trees there.
I agree, yes. Yep, I think that it would require some planning, because it would require removing some cement probably to make it happen, so it needs a plan. Want to,
But my concern is them cutting down on the availability of use of the sidewalk. Because it is so narrow there.
yeah, I would support the trees would reduce the concrete jungle feeling there that, as Mr. Troutman said, if you enter our town there before you get to the downtown. Was encouraged to try to find a way, and then I appreciate you taking into consideration the flow of pedestrians is important too.
Why don't we have him have Kendall take a look at that? Maybe in the next 2 weeks and get back to us on the
We
budget.
can have our arborist that we use take a look at it too.
That would really work well. Oh, are you okay with that?
Thank you, thank you, good, yeah.
Please.
But that, I appreciate you bringing that up, Derek, because when I looked at that and his proposed plans, I thought that would only really could come about if there was a capital improvement plan for that stretch of road. But then realizing that that's probably because it's a highway, I would assume that would fall under a different auspice other than our capital improvement plan, which is doing the off years and the odd years with pavement replacement versus a big scaled project. So do we know if in our capital improvement plan, and I think we have the copy from 2024 to 2029 or 2023 to 2029, if there is a capital improvement plan for the West Mitchell Street corridor? Because I would assume that something like that, a proposal like tree plantings would fall under the auspice of when they're doing a capital improvement plan in that section.
I think that's the state comes in and does the
Okay.
repaving
All right.
there. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And they also in charge of everything from the street lights to that entire stretch is theirs.
Yeah, the right of way, yep.
Okay,
So we don't do a capital improvement on.
that's
that.
not under our auspice,
Yeah.
other than like it's within our municipality, but that the responsibility of those funds and the work falls on the state.
I mean, we could go, if we wanted to to improve what the minimum state specs are, we wanted to go above and beyond and bring flavor from Petoskey to the project. We can add on to that and bring resources to that project to kind of spice it up to meet our needs from a local government standpoint. We can certainly do that.
Thank you, that's helpful understanding that, thanks.
But he'll have Kendall take a look at that stretch. Mr. Wagner.
Thank you, Mayor. I've shared this with Shane in the past. I think it was in September. I had 3 different residents all mention what Shane taught me is our viewscape. So we got a treescape and we got a viewscape. And one of them drove me over to Harbor Springs to show me where they spend a lot of time thinning trees out so we can see our water. Another one happened at Beard's Brewery where they should have a beautiful view of the water, and the trees on the slope by the highway block it completely. And so I would just ask publicly that we prioritize our viewscape as well as the treescape.
I couldn't agree with you more, Mr. Wagner. I think as well as we did trim it out a couple, 2 years ago, I believe. Were you here then?
I wasn't here, but Mike told me
We
about it.
did clear that out, but I don't think they did enough. And I think those that were left have now grown their 2 feet a year and now are blocking a lot of it. Because I feel we should protect that too.
Yeah, I want to second that, and I've also heard it from constituents as well.
Okay, Ms. Walker.
I have one last question. Thank you for the presentation on the budget, Shane, and
Yes.
the heavy lift on behalf of all staff. I guess I was wondering about why you would put the buildings and grounds project instead of under safety, under public safety, why you would put that under Parks and Rec, and is it to make one budget look better than the other, or do funds? Like you have kind of artistic license to move these funds around to make sure that the budget comes out even in the end before presentation to city council. So I guess I'm just wondering, like, for that project that's happening, for sequestering the
Exhaust.
why that would fall under, why wouldn't that fall under the auspice of public safety, as it's directly related to their buildings and their operations?
Well, that's a good question. And I think you could go either way and probably be fine with it. Kendall does manage the building fund. We have 1.5 employees now that kind of work out of that with that Kendall manages from a day-to-day standpoint. So it is a building, both public safety, Lake Street facility and West. Obviously, it's a building, so we thought it made sense to put it under the building fund. Certainly, it is directly a public safety project as well. So that really doesn't benefit City Hall. It doesn't benefit any of our other facilities. So you could reallocate that to public safety. Both are, again, our general fund entities. So you're not getting any advantage necessarily to move it around necessarily, but I don't know, Audrey, if you want to dive into that more.
I think, but even though it's just labeled Parks and Recs, buildings and grounds are also included when those activities are also included within Parks and Rec. So public safety is just for, the service of the public, but Kendall's staff is in charge of the fire station, City Hall here, and some of the other buildings around. So, but I understand, it doesn't, sometimes I question also, it's like, it is for public safety, but yet it is buildings and grounds. But there's no benefit either way to that.
Cause I think when I think of that, like I think about the water in a boat between like the general fund of public safety versus Parks and Rec, and they kind of like share the same balance amount. They're equally about anywhere from 34 to 38% of the general fund budget from year to year. So why wouldn't you put building and grounds under the Department of Public Works, which is actually a revenue generator and always covers their costs always and never takes from general fund budget? Where is my phone?
Well, they do take some from general fund.
We do.
So it's just a matter of, what the percentages are, but. It's not necessarily an enterprise fund. Public Works is not an enterprise fund in and of itself. Obviously, we know what that is: water, sewer, electric.
And we don't have a public works fund.
Right.
We have the streets funds, motor pool, which is an internal fund,
Right.
and then the enterprise funds, but we do not have a,
I'm talking about it in terms of the enterprise funds, of what I think I'm referring to.
Okay,
oh, okay.
gotcha.
I was just wondering, I think that's been a general question of mine during the budgetary season, so I always want to ask, like. Where offsets could be that would decrease. The expenses from general fund and
Yes.
allocate it somewhere, what might have a more sustainable source of funding, I think is what I'm referring to.
Yep.
Mr. Shields.
Thank you, Mayor, and follow up on Ms. Walker's comment there. One of my questions was, I was reading the electric fund transfers that are not restricted as to use. I was wondering if that was the same with the water and sewer fund,
Yes, they were both enterprise funds.
so they're not restricted.
They were not restricted, no,
For
so
transfers.
they operate like anyone else's business. So if you own your own business, you can allocate funds.
Right, all right, so it's a successful city business that's benefiting the residents, so I think I appreciate your question there. And I noticing in the water and sewer fund that the excess revenues over expenses for 2024 comes in at $3,700-ish dollars. Sorry, I don't have the page number. So could that fund be, that excess be used to some of those safety enhancements for City Hall? I would make the argument that City Hall serves, helps keeps the water and sewer fund and public works going. And that safety of City Hall is critical, and that excess that's kind of sitting there. And I'm not saying that we can't recruit it and build up the reserves in that fund, but the reserves are pretty safe there right now. Could that be used to fund some of the safety enhancements for City Hall?
No, I think it could, because we do house those functions here in the building as well. So potentially portion of that could come out of those enterprise funds.
Why do we hold reserves in that fund? I mean, how do they come into play?
In which fund?
In the fund that Derek's
The
referencing?
water and sewer fund or the electric.
They come in when we do capital improvements such as the public works that we're looking at, is that correct?
Yes,
For looking at a long-term replacing our public works building down on Sheridan Street. Our upgrades to the water and sewer.
So that would be my only concern with diverting them if there's a use, that.
right. Yeah, the excess of revenues to 373,000 in a fund this large is not actually that much money, even though, in the general fund, that would be great if we had that much extra money within that, but water with revenues, they can increase or decrease depending on the weather so much. So, you have a really dry summer, your revenue will go up a lot, but so we just take a average of consumption for like usually 5 years to try to base these revenues on.
I appreciate those points, and I fully agree with all of them. I think it's interesting point to raise the operating expenses around 6 million. The cushion was close to 30 million. So that's over 4 years of annual operating expenses cushion. And I do agree that, let's think about the new buildings that need to be put in place. I just wonder if there is room to occasionally look at some of these needs. And when I read that those transfers are not restricted, it was just kind of a light bulb. Well, I want to say that and raise that question. So I appreciate that.
And for the record, I fully support brainstorming.
Help out that general fund, right?
Right. Mayor, one last question.
Please.
Thank you. Maybe, hold on. Oh, the rates for fees, for park and rec, parking, the short-term rental. Is that part of this?
Yeah, you're gonna see that next meeting. All of our rates, fees, fee schedule, and we are proposing some. Significant changes, so I'm interested to hear your feedback on that. A lot of it is on the planning side. We spend a lot of time, whether it's the Maple Block project or other large developments that. From a staff standpoint, we're spending a lot of time with these developers, which we love to do, but. We want to make sure that we're covering our cost as well to some degree. So there are some proposed changes, and I'm interested to hear your feedback. We'll try to get that out to you, as soon as possible. So you have plenty of time to review, and we'll have good dialogue at the next meeting.
And the short-term rental fees that we're discussing, those I'm assuming have been factored into projections of revenues in the budget. Yep. I will be interested in having discussion with council about those funds and potential special use or set aside for those related to housing.
Sure.
In particular, and some creative ideas of that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishes to speak at this point? There being I don't know, normally we don't go to public. Unless it's a motion, unless you feel you want to do stuff again. Normally we don't, but we can. So I open this up to the public for comments. Does anybody wish to speak to council? Come forward. Full name, full address. Yes.
And I'm all set to go here, I think.
Right now, yeah.
I am happy to be at this meeting tonight. Often,
Your full name.
oh, I'm sorry.
Address.
Colin Sherman, 105 Division in here in Petoskey. Happy to be at the meeting tonight and just wanted to say, I'm extraordinarily pleased to see all this robust discussion, questions, broad thinking, a constant look at bettering this wonderful place, which we all hold so dear and that we all want to keep and cherish and have for many generations. So as I was sitting, taking notes and reading the reports, and visuals are wonderful to have the charts, the different colors and everything. It makes financials more accessible to us rather than just the figures themselves. So just to thank you for doing hard work and being students of this hard work. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice.
Any comments? Anyone else? Sir?
Keith Munson, 1034 Wakazu, Petoskey. I saw in the budget, Pennsylvania Park remodeling, whatever. Are you taking out the railroad tracks?
No.
Thank you.
I'd like to be here a while, so yeah.
It was the first discussion I had with Shane. Keep your hands off the railroad tracks. Or they'll be under them. No. First conversation we had, don't touch the railroad tracks.
Said in certain parts.
Anyone else wish to speak to council? Okay, we'll move this forward for possible second reading and possible adoption along with public hearing for the 20th.
Set a public hearing.
Set the public hearing. Do I have a motion for the 20th of November?
Mayor, I'd be happy to make a motion to set the public hearing for our annual budget review 2024 for Monday, November the 20th.
We have a second.
Support.
A motion from Ms. Walker, a second from Mr. Wagner. I go to a vote. Sarah Beck.
Walker,
Yes.
Wagner,
Yes.
Demore,
I,
Shields.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes. All scheduled. So now. Public comments.
Yeah, that.
Well,
All right.
can we add it now? We're asking if we can add something to the budget.
Or not budget.
Well, actually, it's a correction. I'll pass this out. What happened was when the last motion was regarding our 1% tax collection fee. Also, we had the motion to set the changes on the penalties. It was found that we could not do that. And that is because it is set by.
It's in the charter. There's language from the charter as well in that handout. There's a resolution and the section of the charter that we're referencing that spells out the penalties. That's not something we can change via resolution. So
I'm asking if there's a possibility for a motion from you to accept this change of eliminating the other and moving forward with what was passed 4-1 at the last city council meeting. Any motion or
the only thought I have is since this wasn't on the agenda and coincidentally, it's something that Mr. Munson addressed this evening. If it might be wise to put it on our next agenda to allow folks that might want to offer comment to be able to have an opportunity to do so. I realize it was on the agenda before, but this is now a change. So that would be nice.
actually the change was that
I know,
council added the penalty fees.
I know.
And it came to us simply as this 1% sale tax collection.
Correct. I was the one that brought this to Shane saying that I thought we should.
Right.
Yes. I'm just saying it would give everybody an opportunity if anybody wants to offer input to be able to do so, since it wasn't listed on the agenda this evening.
I'm fine with putting it on the other, if you want to. We'll move it to, let's pull it and we'll just put it on the next agenda.
I'll second that motion if that was a motion that
Well, we don't have to say, it
Councilwoman Demore made.
I don't think we need.
wasn't on the agenda, so I'm just asking if there's
Okay,
no
okay.
push for it, then we'll put it on the other agenda. Pass it, why don't you pass it back?
I don't need it. I don't need it.
Keep it,
Hold on, sir.
okay. Next is city council comments. I'll start with Ms. Walker at Fourth Ward.
Thank you, Mayor. Last Friday's groundbreaking at the Loft at Lumber Square was truly inspirational community event, a very heavy lift for our community, and the work continues as there is still a $3 million gap in the fundraising efforts for that. It has also raised a lot of awareness as a lot of folks are talking about affordable housing, and the question still remains is affordability for whom and how these deals are very much structured and very difficult to really get to those the lowest income residents and the most vulnerable in our community. So, you know, providing housing for the 40 to the 80% of the area median income. I think that this will be an ongoing conversation for our community, and there needs to be almost like hyper transparency and clarity of what those numbers really look like translated to annual incomes or rents accordingly. Because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about what affordability is, what workforce housing, what affordable housing is. And so that really changes from place to place and from household to household. So it's an ongoing conversation. And I think it's an indication that people really care about this subject, and our community is making headway in creating long-term rental and sustainable housing for our general population. So
Ward 3, Mr. Wagner.
Thank you, Mayor, and everybody. So it was great to be at that event and also a week before the Housing Summit in Traverse City with some of you. And I got some additional clarity on that topic. There was one particular slide that was very helpful for me. Affordable, broken into 3 different levels, and all of the levels below 80% who have funding sources, but the 80 to 120, that missing middle, there's nobody to help them. And so when you get to the 80 and all of a sudden you're making more money and slide into 90, you don't have the same opportunity. So that provided great clarity. 2 other points. One is that I should know this, I guess, but Housing North covers a 10-county area. We only have 300,000 people in that 10-county area and the size of Grand Rapids. And so when you hear Lansing gets all the attention, or Detroit, Lansing, Grand Rapids from Lansing, and the rural areas don't, that was kind of an eye opener. However, we are getting the attention thanks to 3 or 4 different organizations who are pulling together across northern Michigan and going to Lansing and getting changes made. Great grant funding and a number of other things. So that was great to be part of that. And then the other is, I think it was Frankfurt in particular. They had a representative who was probably more vocal than anybody at the summit about, we Frankfurt want you developers to come here. We need you. And it kind of woke me up to developers don't just find places, they've got places to go, and economic development is needed to bring them here. And the MEDC and the redevelopment ready status of Petoskey has actually made a difference. They've got us listed, they're reaching out to developers to bring them here. And the gentleman from Frankfurt, I didn't catch his name, I think he's on council, maybe be the mayor, I don't even know, but he was very clear about all of these different funding sources available that we've got developers bringing to us to ask us for help with. In their case, he's saying, we want to know those, we want to reach out to developers and let them know that we're going to work with them. So just a little bit backwards from how we've done it here, I feel, but I feel we're in a really good place.
Ward 2, Mr. Shields. Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, Emmett County and the city was really well represented at the Housing Summit. I mean, there were a lot of us there, and so I applaud everybody taking the leadership initiative in the housing space in our community. And even one of us is Nikki representing us at the state level, doing some good work for the State Housing Authority. So that was very encouraging to be a part of that. And then also I was in conversation with a former colleague who works with MDOT, and I heard that we are given approval from MDOT for extending those bollards, placards along the temporary reroute for the wheelway. That's good news, and I'm assuming that will be part of the budget for doing that. So I was pleased to learn that.
Yep. Ward 1, Mr. Moore.
Well, I missed the housing summit because I was in Washington, DC. But for the record, I want to state that I remain very interested in driving and supporting that 0 to 80% need AMI category, which represents 84% of the need in Emmett County based on the Bowen Housing Report. I am concerned and remain concerned about this overlay of 80 to 120 AMI for funding in all communities. It's problematical because one size doesn't fit all. So I look forward to further dialogue on those topics. And I would just encourage anybody who's listening, I don't know if there's anybody listening still, to exercise their right to vote tomorrow if you've not already done so. Thank you.
Had the opportunity of representing the city at MML, Michigan Municipal League, with a lot of great connections with individuals at that conference. Was there with Brian and Tina and our city manager. Also had the opportunity to attend the housing summit. We've got some good news, and that's that the brownfield monies can now be used, brownfield TIF monies, which can actually be used for housing, which is a big step forward for another pool of funds to be available. We have 4 or 5 projects right now going in the city with housing, and we have more in the hopper. And Tom Johnson told me that he has 2 more to bring to the city here anytime now, 2 more projects, so I think we have a great opportunity. Also, thank you for the people, you guys that showed up for the ribbon cutting, dirt shoveling. I think it was great having you there, supporting that the city is all in on as a redevelopment community, and are looking forward to working with agencies. And as I said, we're open for business, for development. Come show up and we'll work with you. As Mr. Moore said, it's so important to stress, if you're not happy with how things are, and if you are happy with how things are in this country or this area, this city, please vote. It's so important. It's other than serving on a jury, I was told those are the 2 most important things for democracy. Serve on a jury when called, and to make sure and vote. So with that being said, I call this meeting adjourned, and we will see you in 2 weeks.